By community selection, we'll be trying the Monkey 47 Schwarzwald Dry Gin today, or the Black Forest Gin. This is a product of the Black Forest Distillery in Germany, but brand is actually owned by Pinot Ricard. If you did or did not know that, it's a Pinot Ricard product. It's 47% alcohol, 94 proof. It is a molasses-based gin with 47 botanical ingredients, as it would make sense, since it has a 47. Not only is there a 47 there, there's a 47 there, and there's 47 botanicals, and of course there's a cat here. It's got a monkey, not a cat. And this one in particular uses what they say is some highly unlikely gin ingredients. And there is ligonberries, blackberries, honey pomelo, beside some more. That's my water. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, you have your own water. That one's mine. Chamomile, sage, angelica, coriander, among other things found in the Black Forest. And this is aged for roughly 3 months in clay copper pots before being diluted to round off sort of the harshness of it. Now, of course, just because there's no barrel doesn't mean that we don't have a reason to age things. So long as we age things in a porous container. What are you doing? Leave that keyboard alone. There is oxygen that interacts with the spirit and has some of those harsher new make sort of compounds evaporate, especially stuff that's part of the heads, if I understand correctly. The head cut. Yeah, he's a menace. He's a menace cat. Can you stop pressing buttons on the keyboard? That would be my preference. He just comes up here and rubs himself all over everything. So yeah. You're okay, Mosley. You're pressing buttons, brother. No. Ugh, we gotta move you. We gotta move you away from that. You can hang out up here, but you can't rub yourself all over the electronics. Unfortunately, you press buttons and you increase the gain and all kinds of stuff. You goober. But you can chill. That's why our music stopped. It's Mosley's fault. It's Mosley's fault. Little shit. He didn't mute me? No, it's pretty hard for him to mute me because the way it mutes is you have to touch the top of it. What usually is the problem is he'll turn up or turn down the gain, so the volume of the microphone will go up or down, or he'll press random buttons on here and you may or may not see anything depending on what buttons he presses, but I'm seeing things on my screen pop up. You goober. Alright. Ears full of your fur, you goober. Alright, so interesting kind of like cork here. It does say something on it. Ex pluribus unum, some kind of Latin. Just on the like silver piece, there's actually a silver piece of the cork right here. Ex pluribus unum, whatever that means. Kind of a funky. Kind of a funky cork. It looks like it's like one cork the whole way through, and it's just got this little ring here. to kind of like separate what's supposed to be in the bottle, I suppose. All right, we'll blend this up and give it a minute. Boom. Of course, since we're talking about gin, this is um, a colorless product here. But again, it is distilled from molasses, as far as I understand. This particular one. Um, Typically, they distill this to neutral and then infuse it. So I don't know if they don't distill it to completely neutral, hence why it would make a difference that they're using molasses instead of like any other kind of vehicle to achieve the actual pre-infused spirit, I suppose. But we're just gonna give that a few minutes since it's freshly out of the container. You goober. You just need to come up here and grab all the attention. That's your job. I'm not getting any attention, Dad. Comes up here and snags the attention. That's what he does. Oops. Of course, he's what is wrong with this? Mosley butt. This is wine? No, this is gin. Schwarzwald dry gin. Of course, wine would not be so clear in color. Now, the initial aroma is very similar to, again, other botanical gins. It kind of seems like initially pretty juniper sort of forward. Some definitely like lemony citrus kind of characteristics. Also like some kind of like slight perfumey floral note. What are you doing, you goober? There's something near the bottom for me that's kind of like slightly barky, slightly like dry baking spice. we're kind of like working through some of that like first very super super like forward notes to try to get what's like kind of like slightly under the surface. Like I'm getting something that's like maybe kind of like cantaloupe. It's not as like can you not? That's mine. Hey. It's not as like bug spray or like what's the right word? Like the botanist that we had, like I always got a note off that one that was kind of like bug spray. I'm not getting that same note, but I'm not sure how you would describe that note without saying bug spray. It's like a kind of like weird medicinal vegetal kind of note. Mosley, you being a distraction. What are you doing? You getting into shit. Alright, you. Oh! Classic Mosley. But yeah, it's like once you get by that first like set of pretty aggressive sort of like forward, almost like juniper kind of like gin notes, you get into some like softer, fruitier kind of like notes at the back, but not like fruitier in the terms that we normally talk about like whiskeys where it's like kind of orchard fruit, kind of tropical fruit. It's kind of like soft fruits like melon or like maybe slightly grapefruit. These kind of like less aggressive, like softer kind of melon kind of fruit notes. What do they say there's in there? There's also lingonberries. I have no idea what that would smell like. Blackberries, honey pomelo. I guess honey pomelo would be like a cantaloupe, right? I guess my reference is like cantaloupe. I'm not exactly hitting blackberry in there, but I suppose the proportions matter too. Alright, let's try this on the palate. Monkey 47 Schwarzwald Dry Gin. Cheers. And there's a little bit to unpack there. Ooh, some weird spiciness at the end. Huh. It's so much different. Like when you go to gins, it's so much different than like whiskeys and rums that like you gotta like almost like change your brain into different gears when you're trying to think about what notes you're gonna receive. Well, the most interesting part of this one, the way it hit me, is actually on the finish. It's like at some point it like changes gears into like all kinds of like herbal spice notes, like almost like in that place where normally you would get like an oaky barrel impact on a barrel aged spirit. All of a sudden you get all these kind of like spicy notes, like coriander kind of notes, like maybe like thyme or this sort of idea. And it's still kind of lingering a little bit. Like a lot of the mixed spices, like I don't have a great for example, flavor reference for what Angelica would be. But like, there's all kinds of like mixed kind of herbal spices, especially at the back of the palate, or back of the finish, I should say. There's like a transition near the back of the finish where it kind of changes gears into this kind of like herbal spicy character. Yeah, we're kind of like past that like super forward kind of juniper sort of aroma. And all into that like slight citrus, slight like honeydew melon, cantaloupe. On the nose. And again, I do think there's like a slightly like almost like cinnamon bark kind of deeper baking spice at the bottom. It's not as bready as the Sipsmith, which is actually one of the gin profiles I actually quite liked because it was almost the whole thing was kind of like very like almost like baked good. It was like bready and baking spices and bark and these like kind of deeper kind of like baking spice kind of notes. And you do get a little bit of that in here at the bottom. But it's complemented more with like some of these like higher kind of like soft fruit components. Again, with some citrus. Yeah, I feel like the more we're getting into this, the more we're kind of like peeling back some layers and getting to that like bottom kind of like bark note. Like cinnamon bark or something like that. Hey, you're back. Are you going to be a butt? Look, if you're going to be a butt, you're going to get down. You goober. Palate has a slight sweetness, slight spiciness, maybe a bit of mint in there. But really almost the finish maybe steals the star of the show. It's kind of like, you know, the palate's pretty nice. You know, it is a little bit sweet. You get a little bit of some of those like kind of like the soft fruit notes, a little bit of spiciness. But as soon as you get into the finish, it's like you get like a spike of flavor right at the start of the finish. And then you kind of have like a transition that happens into the back. Really found it sweet, yeah. And again, I don't know how much of that is related to the fact that this particular gin is distilled with molasses, similar to a rum. But it could just be happenstance. But I think they try to like sell it a little bit that, hey, this is a molasses distillate, so it's going to be a little bit sweeter. Now again, there's some of those infusions that are like, you know, fruits and like melons that will also add to the sweetness, I suppose. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's not, for me, it's not super like piney or super like foresty. At least not today. It's more like sweet melons and like herbal spices, if that makes any sense. There's actually something that's a little bit woody right at the start of the finish, but it might be something that's bitter that's making me feel like it's woody. There's a bunch of like, right when you swallow, I feel like there's a bunch of tightly packed kind of bitter spices that kind of hit a little bit all at once, like floral and or herbal spices. And then those kind of like dip down and you get some of that sweetness. And then at the back, it like turns up like these kind of herbal spices too. Like right at the end. So it's not bad. It's not bad from a complexity standpoint. I kind of, for some reason, thought it would be more like foresty, though. I was expecting more like some more slightly pine kind of notes, like forest trees and this sort of thing. But it's actually more, again, more on like the melon fruit, like sweet melon fruit and herbal spices. Again, there is like some like perfuminess and like floralness just generally about it, but I'm not like competent enough to pick up like exactly what those scents are. Like I couldn't tell, oh, it's lavender or something like that, you know? It definitely has like a perfuminess and a floralness, especially to the palate. But again, I guess the biggest notes for me are like, yeah, like sweet melons and herbal spices. Not super duper like juniper forward. Like there is like a big hit of that kind of like juniper right when you get into it, but like once you kind of get through that layer, it's almost like when you approach a smoky whiskey, you have like this certain like hit right at the beginning where it's like all smoke and barbecue, but like once you live in it for a little while, that kind of goes away and you get the stuff underneath. But doesn't seem to go much further than like this kind of like melon, herbal, cinnamon bark kind of thing. I mean, yeah, like right when you finish, right at the start, it feels like there's like 5 or 6 different little flavors competing for your attention right when you swallow, and I couldn't tell you what they are. I just have to say it's like a cacophony of like herbs and spices that hit you right at the start of the finish. They don't do a great job of like being independently detectable. They kind of just like rapid fire. Also, I feel like the palate is like a little bit soft. It's a little bit like sweet and soft, and you don't get as many flavors on it as you do on like the finish on the aroma. But again, this is 47% alcohol. It's weird with gin though. Like I don't know if like I could see a world where like gin at cask strength is what you would say, or like I guess maybe distiller's strength is the word you would use, like without dilution. Maybe certain flavors are just so overpowering that it's not actually that pleasant, because gin has some pretty strong flavors. But at the same time, I feel like the palate just, it's a little soft still. Again, we're playing at 47% alcohol, and again, you have some good flavor with, you know, again, some of that sweet melon and some of that herb. But it feels like I'm getting like a good amount on the aroma, and then I get a good amount on the finish, and then the palate feels like it's a little soft, like just kind of sweet melon kind of thing. Yeah, most of the flavor for me definitely spikes right when you swallow. Not bad. I mean, it's not bad. I don't know that I would say. I don't know that I would say I expected more, but I don't know what I expected. Obviously, they're providing a premium product, and they're charging quite a bit more for it. But maybe I just haven't had enough gins to be able to appreciate what they're doing here. The flavor impact is stronger than at least the Sipsmith that I have, but it seems about roughly the same as the Botanist that I have. It's not very much stronger. Then again, the like depth of flavor does seem quite a bit better. Again, there's no like random, maybe slightly unpleasant bug spray note. And there is a whole bunch of notes in the finish that maybe I'm too inept to be able to verbalize, or maybe if we spend some more time with this, some of those will like open up and be more discernible. But bug spray note, yeah. But I think part of it is just simply that there's so many like herbs and botanicals that are perhaps hitting the palate right at once, right when you swallow, that it's really hard to really say them all or like be able to like identify the ones in particular. It's kind of like you just get hit with like almost like a giant wave of rapid fire, different kind of like it's almost like you can tell there's individual spice and herbal notes there, but it's hard to like be able to pick them out because they happen so quickly and so they're so tightly connected. And it's almost like one of those things where maybe like it's a situation where perhaps less is more, you know, maybe if it had, you know, 23 botanicals instead of 47, you'd be able to like maybe appreciate some of them a little bit more. It's hard to say. I just don't know. I don't know. It's interesting though. I enjoyed it, but it's hard to really think less would be better. Yeah, maybe. It's hard to be able to like really detect everything you're getting out of this. And it might be a case that maybe, you know, maybe there's too many things trying to happen here, or it could be the kind of thing that like maybe some amount of oxygen exposure, maybe half bottle, makes things taste a little more distinct. Because that's something that I'm learning as I kind of go through with like, you know, tasting and scoring Scotch and bourbon and rums and other spirits, is like there's something to be said for like complex notes. And having lots of complexity that, you know, has a nuance and is hard to detect. But once you kind of like mentally tune yourself to a right frequency, you kind of like get this nuance. And you're like, oh, yes, there's, I don't know, peanut butter in here at the bottom. But I feel like some of my highest scoring spirits are ones that have been crafted in a way that notes are clear and obvious and well defined and very detectable, and you're like, wow, this definitely tastes like A, and then transitions to something else that definitely tastes like B. It's not like you're trying to get in the weeds and be like, what does this taste like? Maybe a bit of apple pudding, and a side of blueberry compote with a bit of cornstarch on the outside. Like, not like that. Like, more like, this is clearly a well-defined flavor, and then it transitions to another clearly well-defined flavor. And what I found with this particular gin is that there were some well-defined flavors on the aroma and on the palate, but like the most interesting part of the experience was as soon as you swallow, you get all kinds of almost like a bouquet of different flavors, but they're so tightly woven, so stumbling over each other, so rapid fire and hard to describe that they don't do a very good job of being well-defined flavors in their own right. And at least for me, I think that would be a better crafted experience. But maybe this has this. I just need to give it some time, give it some air, see what happens. But not bad. I liked it better than the Botanist, though.